Hey guys, today I want to talk about how I check the air pressure in the air bladder on a DVO rear shock. So let's get into it. Now for those of you not familiar with the DVO Topaz shock, basically this thing uses an air bladder which is pumped up with a air shock pump. It also has an air can just like a regular shock. This reservoir air bladder, I'm taking off, you pump this up with a regular shock pump. And this on this particular shock should be pumped up between 170 to 200 psi. The higher psi will make the shock feel firmer, and the lower psi will make it feel more plush. But you need to pump it up at least to 170. If not, you won't get the correct air pressure on the suspension fluid, and the shock won't perform correctly. Now on this pumping up this bladder is what all I'm going to focus on today. And you know what happens, this is a relatively small bladder in here, so pumping it up, you know, it's very hard to pump it up and then be able to check the pressure once you get it pumped up and you take the air shock off of it. And I'm going to show you how I do that, how I pump it up, ride the bike, and then come back and check to make sure that the air pressure is good on that. Now to show you how to check the pressure, really there are two different types of shock pumps you can use to check the pressure. The first, this is a shock pump, just a standard rear shock pump. This particular one came with a DVO shock. It's called a factory parts DVO. If you'll note, I've calibrated. I have a separate video that shows you how to calibrate. But to get the correct pressure, you would take the reading here and then add 5 psi. The other way that you can check the pressure is with this is a Topeak air shock pump. This is a long one. It comes in a long and a short version. This is a DXG model. And the reason this pump actually has a special valve that will allow you to screw it on and screw it off in a way so that no air is released from the air bladder. And I'm going to show you how to check the pressure with either of these types of shocks. Now, the shock I'm going to show you how to check the pressure is installed on a bike just to make it easier for me. And here is the reservoir, and here is the you know, the bladder, and I'm taking the cap off here. And what I'll be doing is, you know, installing the air pump or the shock pump right onto the Schrader valve on that shock. And once I get it, as you can see, the pressure on this shock is showing to be right around 130. And you know, what the pressure needs to be on this shock is I'm going to set it up to between 170 and 180 here. So what I'll do is just pump it up. And there you go, I've got it set, not sure you can see that, but it's at 180. Now, when I take this, this shock pump off, you may have heard just a little bit of air escape. That was the air in the hose on the shock pump, it wasn't the air in the bladder. So the bladder should be set up at 180. By the way, when I was checking this, it said 180 here, but because I need to add 5, the true PSI in this thing is 185 because you know, I have to adjust for the calibration or for the inaccuracy on this gauge. Now, if I just take this air pump and just put it back on this shock and just screw it in, even though I know this is sitting at 185. When I've screwed this in, what it's going to show that this shock, I don't know if you can see this here, but I can't really get a good focus on it, but this is showing at 140. Now the reason it went down is that when I screwed this in, the air came out of that bladder to fill up the hose and to get the pressure. So that's not what the shock or what the bladder pressure was when I inserted the hose. That's just what it was after I inserted the hose. So for this particular shock, because it's at 140 with this type of shock pump, you just have to know how far down it'll go when you screw it in. And I know from experience that to get the air in this bladder takes between 40 and 50 pounds or 40 and 50 psi. So at 140, this thing was holding pressure at about 185. So now for the next part of this, I'm just going to pump it back up to get it to, and it's sitting right at 180. Plus I add the 5 here, and the pressure here is about 185. So I'm going to take this off, and then I'm going to show you how to check it with the Topeak air pressure gauge. Now, this is the Topeak DXG. It's the long version. This cost about 50 bucks. The short version is about $10 cheaper, but the problem is it's a lot harder to get a reading just because it's a lot smaller. But this shock pump has a very special adapter where you put it on the Schrader valve. So when I have it screwed, basically screw it in or screw it out. When I have it screwed out, the air, the little dimple in here will not engage the Schrader valve here, meaning that the pressure in this line will not automatically be filled up by the pressure in that bladder. So since I have it open, what I can do, I can just screw it on and get it tight, and no air has been released out of this bladder. Then I can take the shock pump and pump it up. And like I said, this was sitting at 185. I need to add, based on the calibration, I need to add 19 or 20. I'm sitting here at 175. So if I go down just a little bit, crap, that was too much. So I'm basically sitting at this at 175 plus 20 means I'm at 195. So when I screw this in, it will allow the air in the bladder and in this part of the shock pump will come together, and then I'll get a true reading. So it should be a little bit higher than 185 since the pressure in this line is a little greater than 185. So what I do is you have to basically just screw it in. And once I've got that, now the air should be equalized between the two. This shows at 175. When I add the 20, this shows at 170. When I add the 20, I'm getting 190, which is pretty close to the 185, meaning that this air pressure in this, when I'm checking it, was pretty close to the 185 that I thought was in there. And that way you check. Now, to release this with knowing for sure that you don't release any air, you can just reverse the process. You can just screw the bottom part of the adapter without unscrewing it from the Schrader valve. You just unscrew this bottom part of this valve first. Leave this part in, but just unscrew the bottom part until you see the full gap here. So at this point, there's no way that this can release air out of the air bladder. What will happen is there's a gap here. I'm going to release this. We'll hear just a little bit of air release, but that'll be the air in this this part of the shock pump, and not any release of air from the air bladder. So there I go. I don't know if you heard that, just a slight bit. And there you go. That's how to use the Topeak DXG to check the pressure and then remove it with double checking that you're not releasing any pressure out of the bladder when you take the pump off. Hey guys, that's how I check the air pressure in a DVO rear shock. I hope I've given you guys something to think about, and I'll see you at the top.